'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, except Kpaceguy on the couch. He snorted and he snored, but he didn't care. He knew that Saint Nick would soon be there. Everything was quiet. Then there was a knock. It was Santa coming in at 12 a.m. on the dot. He tiptoed around, for he must be silent. He only leaves his presents when he is in private. He ate all the cookies and he chugged all the milk. He went back to the living room. Then his head started to tilt. He saw the Kef speakers, the screen, and the rack. He scratched his scruffy beard and said, "Oh, I must play with that." He turned on the projector, hoping not to get caught. He said, "I'll listen to one song, and then I'll get off the lot." He danced and he boogied. His moves were top notch. But no one touches the gear, not on Kpaceguy's watch. Kpaceguy had awoken and he was not pleased. He unbuckled his belt and he gritted his teeth. He then tackled Santa and pulled on his beard. He said, "No more Santa Claus. You're never welcome here."
Where are my presents? You drink all my milk. Don't you ever touch any of my stuff again. Are you kidding me? There is no Santa Claus. Don't you ever come back in here again. That's ridiculous. Don't ever show your face here again.
Yo, Kpaceguy here. What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. And today we are rounding out the end of 2022 with a Q&A with Kpaceguy. This is actually part 3, or I guess episode 3 of this. If you want to see the first 2 Q&As with Kpaceguy, I have a playlist called Q&A with Kpaceguy, so it's easy to find. You guys can see some really commonly asked questions that I answer right here on the channel. We're going to do that again. A couple weeks ago, I posted on the community tab that you can only see if you are subscribed to me, for the most part, or it's easier to see if you're subscribed to me. But on the community post, I asked you guys, hey, let's round out the year with a few more questions that you guys have, whether that's about me, about home theater, music, audio, anything you guys want to ask within reason. I will answer it right here, right now. So let's go ahead and do that without further ado. We're going to start off with White Crow UK. He asked, is a 7.1.4 system worth it over a 5.1.4 in smaller rooms? So he's asking, should I run 7 bed layer speakers or should I run 5 in a small room? Now this is an awesome question because I have a small room and I've always had small rooms. I had a bedroom home theater before this and now I have a living room home theater, but my living room isn't that much bigger, honestly. It's not that big. So should you run 5 bed layer speakers, so a front left, center, front right, and then side surrounds or back surrounds, whatever, or should you run 7 speakers, which is front left, center, front right, side left, side right, rear back, and back left and back right? So should you run the extra 2 channels in the back? Well, I'm gonna say it like this because it changes from room to room. If you can't place your speakers where they're supposed to be, it's always a no. If you have to compromise on placement, if you can't get them in their spot, it's a no. It's better to run what your room will allow you to than to try to fit and squeeze all these speakers. And the reason why I say that is because in a small room, if you don't have enough space between each speaker, all of them are gonna sound like they're coming from one spot. So if you have surround back speakers and you also have surround side speakers, but your side speakers and your back speakers are so close to each other, it's just gonna sound like one speaker all in one spot instead of 2 dedicated channels. So it's actually worse to run more speakers if it means making everything kind of complex and there's no separation of sound and it's congested is the word that I'm looking for. So if you have a small room, run 5 speakers. You'll like it a lot better than trying to add another 2 and it not really sounding any different. So Dave Kpaceguy asked a really good question here, and he says HDR10 Plus and pink screen. A lot of the time when watching HDR10 Plus, the screen turns pink. Simply switching HDMI ports and returning fixes the issue. Why? Is it my AV receiver? Is it my cables, TV, or settings? What's going on? Well, this is a really cool question. I haven't had this one before, but the first culprit usually is your cables. HDR10 Plus is a pretty high bit rate form of HDR. It's a lot of information, right? And usually HDR10 Plus is usually combined with like Dolby Atmos or some high quality audio, right? So check your cables first, because not all cables are rated equal. There are different transfer speeds of data depending on the cable. You want to make sure that you have the latest HDMI to be able to handle those speeds, those transfer speeds, being able to take all that information and send it from one device to another. So I would start off with your cables and make sure you have the latest HDMI cables. The second thing is device to device. You may have handshake issues. If your cables aren't the problem, then one of your two devices in the chain is probably obsolete at this point. So your AV receiver, if it's on the older side, but your TV is on the newer side, let's say your TV supports HDR10 Plus, but your receiver is too old and doesn't support HDR10 Plus, well, you're gonna have handshake issues when you watch content with HDR10 Plus. Same thing with your Blu-ray player and your receiver. If your Blu-ray player supports all the latest HDR format, Dolby Vision and the likes, but your receiver doesn't support the latest HDMI inputs and outputs, then you're also, again, gonna have handshake issues. So I would start with the cables first because it's your cheapest, it's your cheapest fix. And a lot of times that is the problem. If both of your pieces of gear are new or newer in the last 3, 4, 5 years, then your cable is the problem. If your pieces of equipment are older than that, then you may have obsolete devices like your TV not supporting the latest HDR10 Plus, or maybe your receiver doesn't. So check your cables first and then go down the line from there. So Malaya Cunningham asked a really good question. She asked, what are 3 highs and 2 lows of your 2022 year? What are you looking forward to or expecting in 2023? Let's start off with that back half of that question. What am I looking forward in 2023? There's one major thing that I want so bad, and that is to move. I want to get out of here. I've been here for, it'll be 5 years this summer that I've been in here. And honestly, my channel has really grown in this living room. I've gone through tons of speakers, met a lot of cool people, had a lot of cool opportunities, all because of this apartment that I now have. This is the first time I've left the nest and established myself, and it's been great. We hit the ground running. But I feel like when I move to a home that's mine, when I don't have neighbors immediately around me, and I can turn my home theater up, and I can do subwoofer reviews and test them to their full ability, and blah, 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 it's gonna take my channel to a whole new level. I plan to have a full dedicated home theater, not in my living room. And that's gonna be my highlight of next year, is to get out of here, get myself a home that I'll be happy with. A first starter home, nothing crazy, but I will make sure that it has a home theater studio, so I have a room to do dedicated videos and product reviews and tests, and I have a dedicated home theater room made for home theater where we can go crazy and turn the volume up and do crazy demos and test speakers and blast them until they can't handle it no more. I think once that happens, my channel will just take off, and that's what I'm most excited for and what I'm anticipating. Now, she also asked, what are 3 highs and 2 lows of my 2022 year? I don't really have any lows. Everything's kind of been upward trajectory. So I'll answer what are my 3 highs. Number 1 is the growth on the channel. It's been nothing but forward for us on the channel. So thank you guys for that. If you're not subscribed, hit the button. The next high that I have for this year is the ability to save money. A lot of you guys think I spend a lot of money on things, and you're right, but I oftentimes return them after I'm done with them, or I sell them, or whatever the case is. And you have to invest. You have to invest in this to get anything out of it. So yeah, I do spend money for my channel, but I get that money back in the form of the ad revenue that I get from YouTube. So I spend money to make money, and I make more money than I spend. And so I've been able to save really, really well this year, incredibly well. Believe it or not, you guys think I just spend money on everything, but I don't. I actually have saved up quite a bit of money, and that's why I think I'm ready to move out. So that's another good high. I think the third high would be just some of the opportunities that I've had this year in YouTube and outside of YouTube. I've met a lot of people from YouTube this year, made some friends that I actually talk to every day and see every day from YouTube. So I would never have the opportunity without that. So that's really nice. And it's just been a room for growth for me too. I'm 29 now as of 6 days ago, or whenever you're seeing as of this video. And so I've matured a little bit. My eyes are forward now. I didn't really have a goal necessarily or a trajectory, but I kind of had my eyes set on a few different goals. So it's been a good year. So really no lows. Of course, everybody goes through ups and downs, but my downs have not been as low as they have been in my past. So it's really all just been ups from here. Now, I like this question. I hope I can answer it correctly, and if you have opinions, please leave it down below in the comment section, but I can't say his first name, so we're going to call him Lopez. He says, one of the real questions are something that nobody ever explains. He says, when you are connecting two or more subwoofers, how do you daisy chain them, and what settings are best to blend them in the room? What crossover, the receiver, how do you set that up? All that stuff, right? Okay, so daisy chaining your subwoofers. The first thing you want to do is get the same subwoofers. A lot of people try to daisy chain different subwoofers, and it's hard because one, they may have different connections, they may have different settings, different parameters that one sub has, the other doesn't. And then two, just blending two different subs in general is a very hard thing to do. Blending subs by themselves, even if they match, is a tough thing to do. So having them different is even tougher. So step number one is get the same sub so that your connections and your settings are all the same. That'll help you so much more than you think. But how do you daisy chain a sub? Well, you may not need to really. Most modern receivers have, multiple subwoofer outputs. If you spend mid-tier dollar or higher on a receiver, nowadays a lot of receivers, even closer to the entry level, now has 2 sub outputs, right? So you can plug in 2 separate subs and boom, now you have 2. But you can get a Y splitter. It takes 1 RCA and splits that RCA into 2. So now you can plug 2 subs into 1 RCA output on your receiver. So if you only have 1 RCA subwoofer output on your receiver and you plug a Y splitter, well, now you have 2. They're not independent. They'll play the same information, which is okay. You want to daisy chain them. So now you can pair 2 subs to what recently or existingly was just 1 sub option. So daisy chaining them is pretty easy that way nowadays. Now some subs, depending on how much money you spend, have inputs and outputs on the plate amplifier. So for example, my subwoofer, my Rythmik G25 HP, has XLR balanced inputs and outputs. So I can plug in from my receiver to my sub a XLR input, and then that same information can be literally daisy chained to another sub of similar caliber. So you can daisy chain subs that way if you don't have extra outputs on your receiver. But if you have a sub that accepts XLR outputs, more than likely your receiver or preprocessor has more than 1 subwoofer. So it's probably just best to get 2 RCAs. So he says, how do you set crossovers and things? Well, it's tough. It really just depends on your subwoofer's capabilities and your main speaker's capabilities, the room that it's in, peaks and nulls. I'm not really going to go and tell you how to set a crossover, but I will say if you go to my how-to playlist, I do have how to set up a subwoofer, how to set your phase, and how to set crossover. I can't tell you exactly what your settings will be because I don't know what subs you have. I don't know what the problems are in your room, if you have acoustic treatment, if your speakers are bookshelves or satellites or towers. So there's a lot of variables. So I advise you just to go down to my how-to playlist, and a lot of questions can be answered down there. Now, Jasmine Miller says, I need help placing speakers in my car. Can you help? Well, yeah, I can, but that's a big question. How do you place speakers? How do you, I guess, take out your factory and put in new ones? It's usually pretty easy nowadays. Manufacturers, car manufacturers, Honda, Ford, Toyota, everybody, they use as cheap as speakers as they can, unless it's premium audio. They use the least expensive speakers and radios they can to save themselves money. So usually taking out those speakers is really easy. Popping your door panels off are really easy too. Most all the door panel is held on by clips that you can just pop off. There's usually 2 or 3 screws in your door panel to give it some more security, but you want to take out your screws, pop off your panel, and you'll see your speaker sitting there if you have speakers in your door. And it's usually 3 or 4 screws. You unscrew them and you replace them with a speaker of similar size. So my car takes 6.5-inch speakers. You want to buy a speaker that's also 6.5-inch. You may need a new bracket or 2, but it's a really easy swap. It doesn't take you too long. If you want to put a more premium system in, like a new radio and an amplifier, there are videos on my channel that actually goes through that. It changes from car to car, and it's harder the newer the car is. So there's videos on my channel for that, but kind of a generic, pretty broad explanation. Pop off your panels and make sure you make sure you research your car and see what size speakers it's using in its doors or dashboard or whatever right now, and then go buy the matching set. So if you have 5 1/4 size speakers, you want to buy brand new 5 1/4s, right? Or if you have 6.5 or 6x9s, you want to go buy 6x9s, and they swap almost pretty easily without any issues. So if you have trunk speakers in your deck lid in the back, that panel pops off from the inside. You can access your speakers there. A little bit hotter in a sedan, so hopefully you have them in the door. Door is always the best scenario, but that's a broad explanation. Now, I love this question. Jasmine also asks, what advice would you give if you're really into home theater and audio, but your significant other isn't? How do we coexist? Well, you kick him out, or her. You send them away. If they don't like home theater, well, I'm sorry, you gotta go, because there's going to be a home theater in the house. That's final. Obviously, that's not going to work, and you're probably going to find yourself divorced or on the couch really quickly. So how do you convince somebody who's not into home theater to be into home theater? Well, let me tell you right now, everybody is into home theater, 100%. They may not want one in their home because they think home theater equals big, large speakers. That's not always the case. But everybody loves a movie. Everybody loves going to the movies. And to have that in your home, there's really nobody out there who wouldn't enjoy that. So everybody loves home theater. Not everybody loves speakers, right? So there's things that you can do to make it better. You can introduce them to in-wall speakers that hide in the wall. You can paint them to match the color of your wall so that they hide away. You don't need a projector to have a home theater experience per se. You can have a really nice television. Most everybody likes television. Most people like TVs. You can buy a nice TV and hide away your speakers in wall, and it's almost like they're not there, but you can still benefit from the home theater experience. Now, it's going to be complicated. You need the right room for it, the right money, and there's some other factors, but if you have the knowledge or know people who do, you can put in-wall speakers in your home, and your significant other will never really know they're there, but they'll still benefit them when it comes to watching TV or movies. Now, sound bars is obviously a good answer, right? Sound bars, one strip of speakers right there in the front, kind of hidden away, very skinny, small bar of speakers that just tuck away under your TV. Sound a hell of a whole lot better than your TV speakers do, and some of them do really good with giving you surround sound, but again, it's minimalistic, it's small. Usually when somebody doesn't like home theater, it's because the speakers are too big. That's really the only thing that spouses say. So if you can find ways to have home theater but keep the look to a minimum, I promise you, you'll win them over. Now, the last thing that I'll say is that usually people who don't like home theater and audio don't know nothing about it. What is this? Home theater, you got speaker here. Why do you need so many speakers? Why do you guys spend so much? What's this box sitting on the floor? Why does it have to go there? If you can educate your spouse, significant other, or friend you're living with about home theater and audio, maybe if they understood what it does, what it's for, and how it can benefit them, they may like it. They just don't know anything about it. They may have their own idea that may be completely opposite. So sit down with them and say, hey, I love home theater. Here's why. Here's what it does. Take them to a Best Buy. Have them sit down one time and listen to some stuff that they're familiar with and be like, oh, wow, that sounds really good. Oh, that's so cool. Did you hear that come from here? Let them experience it once or twice, and I promise you, they'll change their mind. So again, if it's a size thing, sound bars, in-wall speakers, satellite speakers, they'll help you with that. If it's an overall problem with just having white speakers or black speakers or big boxes everywhere. We'll just educate them on what home theater is, and maybe you guys can settle on a small system or maybe a room dedicated for home theater. It's worth a try. So we have another good question here from Derek. He says, I'm running Klipsch RP series for left, center, and right. Can I use Klipsch budget speakers for rear or height channels, or does it need to match the same series as my fronts? Will there be a huge significance in my home theater experience? You don't need to go crazy on surround sound speakers. Most of the information that you hear when watching a movie is in the front. Your center channel is the most important, and then your subwoofer is the most important. So you generally want those to be really, really good. Now, it's best to match your front speakers all together. If you can, you want your front, center, and right speaker to be the exact same speaker. Most cases, it's not possible. So the next best option is to make sure they are the same series. So in this case, like you said, the RP series, all the left, center, and right are from that same series. So that's A++ right there. As far as the surround sound goes, it's always nice to get the same series because they'll have similar power capabilities. They'll typically look the same, but even though they are from the same series, they're typically smaller than the front stage. They're maybe a little bit less in power handling, or maybe they don't have the same bass response as the front stage. So they're going to sound different on their own just because of their sheer size difference. Because of that, it's not necessarily important to buy the same series. Now, me personally, I always will, because even though the size is different and the driver might be a different size, the tweeter is always the same. They always use the same tweeter in all their speakers more times than not. So that may be reason enough as far as timbre matching goes to go ahead and still get the same series, because that tweeter will sound different than what's up front, and that may distract you if you have a keen ear. So it's always just safe to get the matching speakers all the way around. Now, when it comes to Dolby Atmos, I don't have the same set of speakers as my front and my rear speakers. I have a totally different brand. Most manufacturers have their own set of Atmos speakers to match with the rest of their speakers, but they're not always as good as somebody else's. Like, for example, Kev has some Atmos speakers that cost way too much, but they're not any better than my SVS Prime Elevations that are also my Atmos speakers that cost a fraction of the cost, right? So it's always better to match your floor speakers, but Atmos speakers, go ahead and do what you want with those. Rear speakers, not as important, but if you can, go ahead and match them. It won't hurt anything. So the last question of this video is also from Alea Cunningham, who asks, what layout/channel system are you looking to do in your new home? She's asking, what layout do I want to do? Atmos? Do I want to go back to a regular 5-channel system? Blah, 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 blah. I want to go balls to the wall. I want to go crazy. Like I told you guys in the beginning, I want a dedicated space. And I'm already running right now 7.3.4, 7 bed layer speakers, 3 subwoofers, and 4 Atmos speakers. I'm going to do that again. But this time, I'm going to have a bigger space so I can let my speakers breathe. And maybe since it's a dedicated space with nobody above me, I can now take my speakers that are on the wall and put them in the ceiling where they're supposed to go. I can now put my rear speakers a little bit further away from the couch so that they sound a little more realistic. So I'm going to still stick with what I have going on now. I may add a 4th subwoofer. We'll see what happens. But as far as my overall system, it's not going to change, especially because I just bought it. I just got it this summer. So I'm going to keep it for a while. But moving into a new room in itself is a whole new home theater experience. I'm going to have my speakers further apart, right? I'm going to have my home theater seating back in my home theater. My Valencia Tuscany seats that I can't even sit in because I don't have the space, they're going to be back in my home theater. My speakers will be further apart and away from the couch, placed more properly. And that right there will change the sound. And then having a bigger room lets my subwoofers breathe. I can turn up the volume and let them really rumble. So just moving into a new room will add a whole new experience to home theater to where I don't even need to change my home theater. Changing my room is changing my home theater, and it's for the better. Now, because my room is bigger in the new house that I hopefully will have soon, it'll need some more acoustic treatment. So that's the one thing I can't really do in this room is put a lot of acoustic treatment up because I can't put too many holes in the wall, can't hang too many things. But in my own home, I can put acoustic treatment where it needs to go, a dedicated space, and that's going to overall increase my sound quality. So that's what I'm looking to do in my home theater in 2023. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this video and for all those who sent me some questions. We do this periodically. Expect this to be going on again around the springtime of 2023. We'll do another Q&A. If you haven't seen the first 2 episodes of Q&A of Kpaceguy, go back and watch because there's some really interesting questions on those episodes. And there's really cool questions on this one too. So remember, I post on the community tab. It's easier to see it if you're a subscriber, but it's visible to anybody who goes to my page and clicks on community. Check that often because I oftentimes post things on there for you guys. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hit that like button, subscribe if you're not already, and Merry Christmas. We will see you guys in the next video. Kpaceguy out. Peace.